Hi everyone in Algebra 3. Today we're going to be going over your questions on lesson 68. So we're starting on number 1. It says the cleanup cost at Motel California varies linearly with the number of rooms rented out. When 20 rooms are rented, the cleanup cost was $250. Likewise, when 30 rooms were rented out, the cost was $325. How much is the cleanup cost per day when all 50 rooms are rented out? So when it says it varies linearly, we're going to use the equation y equals mx plus b. Instead of y, though, we have our cost, and it's varying based off of the number of rooms. So instead of x, we have the number of rooms. So this would be c equals m n plus b, where c is the cost, n is the number of rooms. They say that the cost is $250 when 20 rooms are rented, and the cost is $325 when 30 rooms are rented. So I'm trying to solve for m and for b. So the first thing that I'm going to do is multiply the top equation by -1. And that would give me -250 equals -20m minus b. Bottom equation I'm going to leave exactly as it is. So 325 equals 30m plus b. The b's cancel, and you get 75 equals 10m. So m is equal to 7.5. Now what I need to do is solve for b, and I can do that by plugging it into the top or the bottom equation. So I get 250 equals 7.5 times 20 plus b. So 7.5 times 20 gives me 150. So I'm going to subtract that from the left side. So I get 100 is equal to b. So now my equation for cost in terms of the number of rooms is going to be c equals 7.5 times the number of rooms plus 100. We're trying to evaluate how much the cost for 50 rooms. So that would be c equals 7.5 times 50 plus 100. Now 50 times 7.5 plus 100 gives us the cost is equal to $475. So that's based simply off of the equation with the line y equals mx plus b. Now moving on, we're going to look at number 4. So number 5. It says Athos rode m miles in u hours, then walked s miles in u plus 2 hours. At this average rate, how long did it take Athos to travel 100 miles? So for number 5, we have this equation. Overall rate is equal to overall distance divided by overall time. So the overall distance is going to be his m and the s miles. So the overall distance would be m plus s. His overall time is going to be the original u plus the u plus 2, which would simplify to m plus s over 2u plus 2. So now we're gonna use the equation distance equals rate times time. So our distance is gonna be 100. Our rate is gonna be this m plus s over 2u plus 2 times time. So to get the time by itself, you're gonna multiply by the reciprocal, which would be 100 times 2u plus 2 over m plus s. But notice that you could factor out a 2 out of this equation and multiply it by the 100. So that would be 200 times u plus 1 over m plus s. Now on a test, if you didn't remember that, I would not mark it down, but this is how the answer key, I think, leaves your answer. So they factored out the 2 and then multiplied it by the 100. Now looking at number 7, we have find 4 consecutive integers such that the product of the second and the fourth number is 3 greater than twice the product of this first and the third. All right, so we have 4 consecutive integers. Those are going to be n plus 1, n plus 2, n plus 3. The product of the second and the fourth. So second and the fourth, so that would be n plus 1 times n plus 3 is 3 greater than twice the product of the first and the third. So 2 times the n times n plus 2, and it's 3 greater than that. So I'm going to multiply that through. So I'm going to get n squared plus 4n plus 3 equals 2n squared plus 4n plus 3. So the 3's on both sides are going to cancel. The 4n on both sides cancel. So really we're left with 0 equals n squared, which means that n is equal to 0. So my consecutive numbers are going to be 0, 1, 2, and 3. And that should be your answer for number 7. Now moving on to number 20. So for number 20, because it's already factored for us, we're actually going to set each of these equations equal to 0. Each of the parentheses equal to 0 already. And then we'll solve for the degree, the angle, or radian. So I'm going to set, for number 20, I set tangent x equal to 0. And then I'm going to set 2 sine x plus 1 equals 0. When I move the 1 to the other side, I get 2 sine x equals negative 1. Then I'm going to divide by 2. So I get sine x is equal to negative 1/2. For this one, I'm going to end up using the unit circle. So 1, 0, 0, 1, negative 1, 0, 0, negative 1. And tangent is equal to y over x. So the only way for it to be equal to 0 would be for the y to be equal to 0. So I'm going to underline all of my y coordinates, and look, the y coordinate is only 0 at 0 and 180. But remember that your answer has to be in radians. So in radians, that's just going to be 0, not 0 degrees, it's just 0. Then 180 degrees is equal to pi radians. And that would be your result. Now for this one, I'm looking for where sine is negative. So using my chart, all students take calculus. I know that everything is positive in quadrant 1 and sine is positive in quadrant 2, which means that it's going to be negative in the opposite 2 quadrants, so 3 and 4. Now the opposite is negative 1 and the hypotenuse is 2, meaning that the adjacent is going to be root 3 and negative root 3. That means that this angle is going to be 30-degree angle, but we need this in radians. So if I draw my chart for radians for 30 degrees, I should have 6 lines in between 0 and 180, indicating that my denominator is going to be 6. And when I'm counting, I'm always going to be counting to the line closest to the x-axis in each quadrant. So I already know that my answer is going to have a denominator of 6 for both of them. And then there's going to be a pi in it. And then I just need to find that coefficient. So I'm going to start by counting. From 0, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then 7 is the first line in quadrant 3, so that would be 7 pi over 6. You want the line closest to the x-axis. Then we're going to go 8, 9, 10, and 11. The line closest to the x-axis, so that would be 11 pi over 6. And those would be your 4 answers for number 20. Now moving on to number 22. It says that you're supposed to do this in degrees, but I'm going to check the answer key real fast and see if maybe I just typed that wrong. So this is lesson 68, number 22. Oh, they do want the answer in degrees. Okay, so for number 22, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to move the 1 to the other side. So I would get sine 4 theta equals -1. Now for this one, it's not going to use a reference triangle. It's going to use the unit circle. And sine is equal to the y-coordinate. So I'm going to underline all my y-coordinates. And if you notice, there's only one y-coordinate that's equal to -1. And that would be at 270 degrees. So my first answer is going to be 270 divided by 4, giving me my first answer as 67.5. Remember, we have to have 4 answers because of this 4 that's attached to this theta. So I'm going to set 4 theta equal to 360. This will find the difference between this answer and the next answer. So when you divide 360 by 4, you get 90. Now this isn't your answer, but that's what you're going to add to this answer. So 90 plus 67.5 would give us 157.5. Then plus 90 would be 247.5. Then plus 90 would be 337.5. So you should have 4 answers, all of which will be between 0 and 360 degrees. Now looking at number 24, we have cosecant squared of -3 pi over 2, and then 4 pi for tangent cubed, and then -3 pi over 2 for sine squared. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to draw my snowflake chart for the 3 pi over 2. So that would just be a line here and here, and then here and here. That would be 0. And then for just over 1, I'm only going to have a line at 180 and here. And this would be my 0. So I'm going to count -3 pi, which means that I'm going to count clockwise starting in quadrant 4. So 1, 2, 3. So it would be the line facing up, which is 90 degrees. That coordinate is 0, 1. Then for the 4 pi, I'm going to count. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So that puts us back at 0, which coordinate would be 1, 0. So for the first one, I have cosecant, which is equal to the inverse of sine. So that would be 1 over the y-coordinate. The y-coordinate at 90 degrees is 1. So 1 over 1 would just be 1. I would have to square that. Now for this one, tangent is y over x. My y is 0 divided by 1 would just be 0. And I would cube that. Then the last one, sine, is equal to the y-coordinate. So again, that would just be 1. And I would have to square that as well. So 1 squared is 1 plus 0 minus 1 gives us a result of just 0. Okay. Now looking at number 26. So the first thing that I recognize is there is a number outside my log, so that's going to become the exponent. So for number 26, I'm going to get ln of x minus 1 squared equals ln of 3x minus 5. To get rid of the ln, you're going to raise it to the power of e, so it's e to the ln, and that's going to cancel. Now you get x squared minus 2x plus 1 equals 3x minus 5. And we're going to set this equal to 0 by bringing everything over to the left-hand side. So that's going to give me x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals 0. Now I have to check if this factors evenly. Well, two numbers that multiply to give me 6 but add up to give me negative 5 would be negative 2 and negative 3, which means I have two answers. My two answers would be x is equal to 2 or 3. And then I want to check if these answers work. So if I plug in 2 into this, that would be 2 minus 1. That's a positive number. 3 times 2 is 6 minus 5. That's the correct answer. Or that works because it's positive. 3 times 3 is 9 minus 5 is positive 4. And then 3 minus 1 is 2, which is also a positive number. Therefore, I do have two different answers for number 26. So you need to make sure that those fit into your equation, your original equation. They have to equal a positive number. Then lastly, we're going to look at number 28. And so for number 28, again, in my exponent, I have a number outside my logarithm. So that's going to become the exponent. So that would be e to the ln of 5 cubed minus 10 to the log 3 plus log 2 squared, then minus ln e to the negative 3. Now I see a plus sign in my exponent, so I am going to actually multiply those two variables. And then 5 to the third power is equal to 125. So this is going to be e to the ln of 125 minus 10 to the log of 3 times 4 minus ln e to the negative 3. Now, because my base and the base of my log and the exponent are the same, they cancel because the base of ln is log with a base of e. My log with no base is a base of 10, and then again, ln is a base log with a base of e, so those cancel. So really, I'm left with 125 minus 12 plus 3. So 125 minus 12 plus 3 gives us a result of 116. That should conclude all of your questions from lesson 68. I hope you guys all have a great day.